Start getting everything ready.
Well, I think you will probably start right at 9, Mike. You ready to go?
Whenever you are, sir.
All right. I got a minute on my clock.
Good to go.
It's live. Perfect. All right, as it is 9 in the morning, the virtual is recording and turned on. We'll go ahead and call to order the Columbia 901 Communications District's August 25th, 2022 meeting. Call to order. Present we have Shelley Hennessy, Bruce Holsey, Rob Anderson, Henry Heimuller, and Jeff Flatt, all in person today. We'll start with public comments. Mike, did you want to facilitate? Do you know different people? Tyler? Yes. And there's a podium if you'd like to, your choice. If you want someplace to set things down.
Is there a mic or is there a reason to use this area over here?
Just it was for comfort for if people were just standing in the middle of the room.
Okay. I'll actually go up here if it's okay. Good morning, Columbia 911 Board of Directors, staff, and visitors. For the record, my name is Tyler Miller. I'm a Scappoose resident and city councilor for the city of Scappoose. My passion and my background is in public safety and technology. City Manager Rains asked me to express her regret that she is not able to attend this meeting. City Manager Rains has attended the last several 911 board meetings due to the important topics in front of each of you. City Manager Rains asked me again to emphasize the city's request that this board please pause making decisions related to a future new radio system until the Tate engineering is completed. As of last Friday, the update from Tate was the engineering will be completed in October. That's right around the corner. What we already know from the meetings with Tate is that we are able to accomplish excellent radio system coverage countywide and for a fraction of the cost that the 911 district's consultant presented to this board. Literally what I've seen firsthand is excellent coverage in every city, every school building, every store, every government building, and the vast majority of every road throughout this 911 district service area. All of that for nearly half the cost of what the district's consultant presented to all of you. Millions of dollars less for more reliable radio coverage, much safer for our first responders, and much safer for the children and teachers in every single school. For these reasons, it is prudent this board allow that engineering to be completed and presented. Please do not avoid additional information that would make our community safer, our first responders safer, and cost taxpayers millions of dollars less than what your consultant has presented to you for an extremely unrealistic, high-priced system. I'm confident each of you will be pleased with what you see from Tate in their engineering report and proposal. Next, I'd like to give testimony about the condition of our current radio system. It needs to be fixed. It can be fixed. Any new replacement radio system is likely to take at least 2 years considering the process that has to be undertaken. We cannot afford our public safety being put at risk daily due to the current faulty conditions of our radio system. We cannot afford to have our children's safety at risk when an emergency unfolds in any of the schools throughout Columbia County that lack public safety radio system coverage on the outside of the school or inside the school building. I'd like to cite a few parts of a letter dated August 30th, 2016, written by Mark Pallins. Until his recent passing, Mark was a communications consultant and communications systems engineer that this district hired back in 2014. This is his letter. You guys probably recall it. It's dated August 30, 2016. And again, I'm just going to read parts of it because I only have 10 minutes here. It says, attached is a Spectrum research report. It contains a thorough narrative of the extent of activities needed for this project. Over the last year, that's the work that we were doing over the last year, he had determined that to improve the radio system coverage, we must move sites, add new sites, and replace antenna systems used at the current sites. Some of the frequency work the letter talks about the district needing to complete was completed, but the relocating of radio sites and additional radio sites that was outlined was never completed, despite this board authorizing spending over $350,000 on making one of the needed sites partially ready 6 years ago. That site was never completed. This work was imperative to have done back in 2016, and here we are over 7 years later, and the antenna work, for example, Mr. Palin cited as critically important, has still not been completed. That equipment now is around 21 years old. We are asking you to hire a qualified engineer to lead this repair work of the current system. You have over $2 million in reserve fund for this exact type of thing. Your family's safety depend on it, their family's safety depend on it, and all of our first responder safety depend on it. This is not a complicated issue. This is not a political issue. This is a common sense, critical public safety matter. At the last 911 boarding, I gave public comment just as I am now, and I offered to provide the bulk of necessary equipment to fix the coverage issues in and around 3 Scappoose schools. Next, I want to talk to you about the idea of joining another county's public safety radio system. There is a very obvious push by this agency's executive director to join Washington County's radio system. Let me tell you about a recent incident that very clearly illustrates that we should not have joined WACA's computer-aided dispatch system and why we should definitely not join the radio system that they would retain unilateral control over, just like the CAD system. A while back, a call came into a 911 center for a trauma incident off Rocky Point Road in Scappoose near Highway 30. This area is Scappoose Fire District's response area. Because we use Washington County, or WACA's CAD system, and because from what I'm told, WACA refuses to make the needed changes to the system, EMS and rescue units from Washington County were incorrectly dispatched to this trauma incident. I'm told by our first responders the injured patient waited for over an hour for medical attention or emergency services. This would not have happened if we were on our own CAD system like we were before for 17 years. Imagine if the incident was a cardiac arrest or a major car crash. The person or people would have been dead. We should not be sharing critical systems with other counties who have their own community's public safety as their priority, as they rightfully should. We cannot have competing interests when it comes to critical public safety systems impacting whether or not someone receives timely, professional emergency services. Our community's public safety must be this board's priority. If we share critical technical systems that involve competing public safety interests, that inherently cannot happen, as illustrated by the Rocky Point incident. This agency needs to implement its own CAD system before someone dies. This board needs to take that as an urgent priority and select a CAD system that serves the needs of the first responders. Over and over again, I hear how terrible our current CAD system is and how the CAD vendor failed to follow through on multiple promises that they made to responders in this county. Next, I'd like to address this board about the time of monthly board meetings. This is a topic that is on your agenda, so I'm bringing it up now. It's perfect timing. This agency is getting more public attention. It has made clear by multiple members, it has been made clear by multiple community members that they would like to attend your board meetings, but they can't because the board meetings happen on weekdays during work hours. And as you know, it is critically important that public meetings be made accessible to the community. That is why there's a requirement that these meetings be made public. Having the meetings at a time that does not allow the majority of citizens to attend is not in line with the spirit of the public meetings laws. I have been asked by multiple citizens to request this board move their meetings to 6:30 or 7 on weekday evenings to allow our citizens to actually participate in these board meetings and know what's going on with their 911 service. I think it's important to mention that we as elected officials are only in the position we are because of the voters. Our constituents, they put us here in these positions. I think it's safe to say that voters filled in the bubble next to our names on the ballot because they thought or think we are qualified. They thought in this case that we would do the very best thing for their safety, for the safety of our first responders and certainly the safety of their children. Please let that be your guiding light when you serve on this board. 911 services are perhaps the most important services within this entire county to just under 53,000 people. 53,000 people are counting on you for their safety related to 911 services. As I wrap my public comment, I'd like to pass out some maps that show the coverage for our current radio system and the condition it is in and around our schools. The maps I'll pass out are from your consultant about 12 months ago. In the radio system coverage meetings, first responders verified the computer-generated maps were accurate to what they say they experienced while on duty. The brighter green is the actual radio coverage. Don't get that confused with the other green because it shows the vegetation on the maps as well. Thank you. My phone is always on, and each of you have my number. I'm committed to staying engaged on these topics and keeping the public informed until each of these issues have been corrected. Let's work together collaboratively, and remember, we are here to serve the public's best interest. We can best do that by all working together professionally and collaboratively. And I'll pass out these maps really quick.
Oh, thank you. And you have one for Mary Jo for the record?
Yeah, of course.
Perfect.
Thank you, Tyler.
I'll take Mary Jo's. Okay. Thanks. Do you want one?
All right. Well, thank you, Tyler.
So just really quick here, if I may,
Yep.
this is what I'm talking about the brighter green. Y'all can see the difference. And it becomes more apparent on pages 2 inward. So I'm just saying, you can see where the trees are and the grass. You can, kind of notice that the green is a little bit different there. It's the bright green, which is, I think, most clearly illustrated and obvious on the second page there. And I tried to put some markers in there to make it obvious. Is there any questions that I can answer?
I just have a clarifying question, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if that's okay. So what you're indicating on these is that the green area that you highlighted on the outside edge is where there's good coverage, adequate coverage? Or is that, is the island in the center less coverage? Is that what that's supposed to depict?
Yeah, thanks, Henry, for clarifying. So first off, these are the maps that Federal Engineering, your guys' consultant, provided. So I want to make that clear. This isn't something that we did.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that your notes represent.
Yeah, so that's right. So this is what's called in-building coverage. This is the in-building coverage. So you can see that there's this very interesting, almost, I don't know what you want to call it there, but you can see for example, Class 9 middle and high school is completely lacking in-building coverage. And then all the other schools that are shown in the following pages as well, those all lack in-building coverage as well. And then the coverage maps for the outside on the street coverage show that there's a lot of missing area on the outside of schools as well. I didn't want to overwhelm people with information. This was the easiest to explain. And of course, because this is printed and relies on the quality of a printer, it's not as clear as looking at it on a computer screen, but you get the point.
I just wanted to make sure I understood your note.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, and if, excuse me, and if you wouldn't mind, maybe just start with your name and where you're from.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Tim Porter. I'm the superintendent of the Scappoose School District. I live in Scappoose. And I'm here to speak regarding the radio replacement system. In a previous public comment, and obviously today in a public comment, the city requested to collaborate with the Columbia 911 Communications District. I am here to encourage you to collaborate with whomever you need to in order to ensure that the replacement radio system has sufficient coverage in and around Scappoose and our schools. This includes the Scappoose School District, which is more than willing to work with you to ensure that the replacement radio system provides the necessary coverage. I am confident that we are all working towards the same objective, to keep our community and students as safe as possible. One aspect of that safety is a reliable 911 radio system. Thank you for your time and consideration, and if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak though? Testimony. Hearing none?
Just a moment.
Yes. Oh, sorry, no, we got someone that popped up.
And Nathan, I see a hand raised online as well.
If the person online wants to go first, since they had their hand up, that's fine. I'll step back and then I'll take my turn next.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Nathan, do you know who it is?
I see a Brandon.
Yeah, if he wants to speak, go ahead and unmute.
Brandon, are
Yeah,
you there?
good morning. I appreciate the time.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I am mobile, so I apologize if my connection is spotty at times. My name is Brandon Lasowski. I'm a resident of Scappoose, also a city councilor for the city of Scappoose, resident of Columbia County for over 35 years. I just wanted to share my sentiments with you all today that I think that as you move forward with the radio replacement project, that you take in the information that was provided by Mr. Miller today, and thinking about how it will, that your choices will impact not only our first responders, but also our school districts and our citizens abroad. I appreciate all of your service and your time and commitment. I would also like to suggest that the meeting be put into a later time slot for more citizen participation. I think that that would be a fantastic opportunity for your team to be able to engage with the public. With that, I want to say thank you again for your time and your commitment, service, and the opportunity to share with you this morning.
All right, well, thank you, Brandon. Any questions or anything? No?
Hello, members of the board. Thank you for holding this meeting today. My name is Melissa Bush. I'm a nurse here in the community, a mother of school-aged children in our community, and I'm currently running for public office to represent all of this community for State Senate District 16. I am deeply concerned about these issues as they impact both our first responders and the safety of our community members. This issue has come to my attention more recently, but I was pretty shocked to realize how long this has been going on and how long these discussions have been happening, with what seems to be very little momentum moving forward to address these critical safety concerns. I'm a home health nurse here in our community, and I find myself calling on our first responders fairly frequently when I have patients that are in crisis. And it's shocking to me to know that I might be in any of these communities and calling on our first responders without their ability to have the information they would need to be able to safely arrive on scene to help our community members when they're in need. Furthermore, the issues that are related to our schools and the safety of our schools, both for our children, our teachers, all of the educational staff, and the first responders who might show up in a moment of crisis that I think we all are aware of, unfortunately happens so frequently in communities across this nation. We must make sure that we have access to safe and efficient communication systems for our first responders and for the safety of our children. So I echo all of the requests today here from other community members to take some swift action. It sounds like there's already been some groundwork done that could help to expedite some at least immediate solutions for the lack of service in the school areas, and then moving forward to look at a more comprehensive plan for the overall communications district. I also would echo the request to shift the time frame of these type of meetings and making sure that they're accessible and transparent to community members. I myself am a working mother, and showing up at 9 a.m. on a Thursday is not easy. And I think that our community members have the right to be able to have accessibility to these conversations and to weigh in, because I think that that's part of the civic process. So I would really encourage you all to consider finding ways to make these things more accessible to the community. I thank you all for your service. I believe that you're here in good faith to do this work on the behalf of the safety of our community, and I look forward to collaborating with all of you in any way that I can to help move this work forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to provide any comment?
Yes, there's two other hands raised online. Carol Sweet.
Okay, I guess we will start with Carol. And again, Carol, if you can just start with your name and where you reside for the record, please.
Carol Sweet. Carol Sweet. I live on Rabinsky Road in Scappoose. Seems like it's the Scappoose people turning out today. Anyway, I just want to say I spoke to you guys last meeting, and I was eagerly awaiting the agenda for this meeting and sure that our topic would be on it, but it wasn't. And I just want to say a heads up again about the radio replacement. If we're talking about schools, and you look at what's happening in Balde right now, where they're going through and saying who knew, who didn't, we know it's an issue, and we're not paying attention to it. And what does that say about us? So we may find it's way beyond our cost. We may find that but I want to know as a citizen, if I'm saying you kids must go to school, but I'm going to put you in a little bit of danger. And I'll repeat again, I moved from St. Helens to Scappoose and 16 years ago and bought my house up here, and they said the only bad thing is there's no police radio. If you get police, you have to do it by phone. And I thought, well, that'll be fixed soon, and it's 16 years later, and it hasn't even been addressed. So I want to encourage people to pay attention. Let's not have something happen and then have to pay attention later in the courts. We don't want to do that. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Carol.
And
You said there's another person
there was
online?
Richard Hyatt.
Hello, Richard, are you there?
Yeah, I have nothing to say. Thank you.
Okay.
And I don't know, Brandon, Brandon, I see your hand raised again.
Yeah, Brandon, are you there?
That must be on accident. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to turn it off. My apologies.
Okay, so you have no comment?
He already spoke. Okay.
All right. See, nobody else?
Nobody else online?
All right, so we'll move on to additions to the agenda. Staff?
Nothing from me.
Nothing? Okay. We move on to the annual organization of elections and appointments. So we will go ahead and start with the I'll open nominations for board president.
I would just ask for volunteers. We typically kind of rotate it, amongst the boards, how we've done it for all these years. And so, who wants to throw their hat in the ring this year?
I'll volunteer unless someone else wants it.
I suggest that we close that nomination.
So your nomination for Bruce.
You bet.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any others? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And guess what, Bruce?
Yeah. Thank you.
Congratulations.
You get to move to the
You
chair.
didn't know that was an immediate appointment.
Yeah, I don't think that takes place right away.
Then we move to vice president.
Okay.
Yeah, the meeting is yours.
Oh, thank you. Okay, any nominations for vice president?
I'd be happy to take that position. It seems how I'm at the member at large position this year. I guess it probably better be a little more active if that's what everybody would like.
Okay.
Mr. President, I will nominate Henry Heimuller.
Okay. A second. Okay, there's a second.
Any others?
Any others?
Call for the vote.
And calling for the vote.
All those in favor?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Henry. Nominations for secretary.
Silence gets you nominated.
Well, I'd say, being as we have some excellent staff on board, these aren't too terrible. I would like to nominate Jeff
Secretary?
for secretary.
Okay, nomination is for Jeff for secretary. Do I have a second? Seconded by Henry. Any others? All in favor? Signify by aye. Aye. All right. Congratulations, Jeff. And nominations for secretary.
I'm sorry, treasury.
Or treasurer, sorry.
Mr. Chair, I nominate Shelley for treasurer, leaving Rob Anderson as our member at large.
Congratulations. So we have a nomination for treasurer. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Jeff. Any others? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Congratulations. Okay. Where else are we here?
Appointments to board standing committees.
Okay, appointments to board standing committees. What do we do there? User services.
You guide us there, Nancy?
There is a document in your packet that has the current positions.
There we go.
Unless there's folks that want to change off or onto one committee or another, and I'm happy to move around if folks want to move. If there's not, I would not move that we renominate everyone into their existing committee structure.
Is there a second? Does anyone want to move? Okay, we have a second by Jeff. All in favor?
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Could we ask for discussion
Sure.
prior to the motion, just so that folks
Is there
have-
any discussion? No discussion. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So those will stay the same. Okay, appointment of advisory committee.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, yep. Did I miss something?
No, I was gonna say I would like to go ahead and approve the slate. Legal services to with Bullard Law.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
Oh,
Listed under the agenda. So it's basically retaining our current counsel, Bullard Law for labor, Beerley Ensler and Hammond for contracts, auditor Polly Rogers, and insurance agent of record to be Hagan Hamilton.
Second.
We have a second by Henry. Discussion.
On that auditor position, is that, how long has that firm been doing the audit? And is it previous practice? Do we switch it around, or we just been going with this?
We've been with them for 25 years. But what happens within that firm is the lead auditor changes every 2 years.
Okay, so it's not just the same?
So it's not the same
Yes,
people
it's a
ever.
different team.
Okay.
And that was the same question that was, I think, following up from our budget committee meeting.
Yeah.
And I think that, just for everybody's knowledge, on the insurance agent of record, the agent is Hagan Hamilton, but our insurance company is through Special Districts Association of Oregon, and so, which 911 and fire districts and everybody are members of. So they just happen to be our local agent.
Correct. Point of order to the board, is there, regarding our auditor, that this topic has come up a couple of different times, is there interest in having the district staff seek bids for different auditors' service?
I think that we've kind of left that a lot to our chief financial officer. We've brought up over the course of many years that we didn't want the same audit team continually. So, and just recently at the county, we switched auditing firms just because scopes changed and things, and certain agencies don't have a lot of strengths in certain areas, and so I absolutely have no problem with casting our net if it's time to do that. And I guess the question I would have prior to our vote is do we want to do that this year now before we name Polly Rogers our auditor of record?
That's a good point.
Because you've got audit coming up.
Yes, we do. I would
Overall.
recommend that we stay with Polly Rogers for this first year, because remember, I am going to be leaving, and I think it would be good to have them, since they know how we do things here, have them be overlooking.
So maybe have our new CFO engage in the,
Yes.
reaching
I
out
think
to
that would be,
put out an RFP for new auditors
For next
next
year.
year.
yes.
That's a great idea. We can accomplish that.
And just for a comment, I think we also, from the budget committee, determined that we might look at our board policies in the near future to seeing if this is something we want to establish in policy that we do rotate for auditor.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I'm jumping the gun here. Now, appointment of advisory committee.
Mr. Chair, we have a very comprehensive list put together by staff on reappointments and then new appointments. And I would suggest, in fact, I would move that, and for the audience, everything's highlighted in yellow, or either reappointments or new appointments as it pertains. And with that, I would move that we reappoint and appoint those new members as described on this document.
I'll second.
Second by Rob. Discussion on it? Anyone? All right.
Vote.
To the vote. All in favor? Signify by
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, opposed? Okay, moving on.
You're still on your committee, Mike.
Adoption of the meeting schedule every fourth Thursday at 9 a.m.
Mr. Chair, back to Mr. Miller's point and Mrs. Bush's point about the evening meetings. I personally have no problem at all with evening meetings. In fact, I've served on this board for almost 30 years, and for the first many years, we met in the evening, and 6 o'clock and or 6:30, I can't recall which, and we had just about as much community participation then as we do here now. I personally have no problem with an evening meeting, but I'm not entirely sure. Having the opportunity for people to come after work is great. What past practice typically shows is that folks don't want to give up their evening time with their kids and family and things like that any more than anything else. So happy to do either way, whatever you all want to do. But the point's well taken, that at least even if nobody shows up, the opportunity is there. And it could be such a thing that it could be a hybrid where we do some of the meetings in the evening, some of the meetings during the day. I think the value that we get out of the daytime meeting part is that our community partners, if somebody's at work on duty that needs to come or Skype in, they're on the clock and can do that. Our staff doesn't have to get paid overtime or things like that to come in after hours. They're here. So there's value one way and the other, but I'm happy to, personally happy to entertain either way, but we have had them in the evening for many years.
I kind of like the idea of the hybrid, I think, because that might be best of both worlds. I mean, for working people, because I know a lot of people work shift work too, so, well, up at my end, so.
I was gonna suggest, I agree, I like the hybrid idea. It's pretty hit and miss whether I can come here during the day with my job duties on my job. Summertime's of course different, but now with school starting, that changes all that, so.
So something like every other month, one in the day and one in the evening, does that?
I don't think it would hurt to try it. I mean.
Well, I mean, we
and
can
then-
always change the meeting schedule, anytime, we take action on an important meeting, but,
Maybe that would open it up for some of the other people.
the Thursday thing, if we kept the fourth Thursday,
I was just thinking, I know a lot of people have kind of recurring events that occur along the month.
I was thinking that.
I was almost wondering, would it be best to set our next meeting to be in the evening and then to table the adoption of our meeting schedule until the next meeting so everyone will have time, staff included, to look at their calendars and try to figure out the best day? Because I know, Fire Defense Board meets on the X day of the month,
Right.
and a whole bunch of others. That way we can try to find a date that's not going to conflict with other committees.
So we want to table it and then just move the meeting? Do we need a motion for that? So,
No, I don't believe so. You can just reset the schedule for the September meeting.
okay, let's just go ahead and do that then. I mean, is that, everyone okay with that?
So 7 o'clock, is that what we're doing?
On same date, same day of the week, etc.
that's a
So that
little
would be-
late.
Yeah,
6?
6 sounds, I mean, most people get off, certain days, usually like 5. It's good travel time, that would at least give them here at 6.
So that would be Thursday, the 22nd of September, and just move that meeting time to 1800, 6
Okay.
p.m. or 6:30. It's the board's pleasure.
I don't have a problem with 6 p.m. or 6:30, but 6.
Works for me.
Shelby's saying 6. What are you guys thinking?
Well, if you don't mind, being as we did have some public testimony on it, I'd just be curious to see with the members of the public that here are present between 6 and 6:30, if there's something that they would see would be more beneficial. Because if you're commuting home from Portland, 6 is a bit tight.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean,
My thought is 6:30, just so that if parents are commuting home, they have time to do the dinner thing before the meeting. But at the same time, we don't want to go too late. So I think 7's too late, 6 is maybe too early, so 6:30 might be the sweet spot.
does that work for you, Shelby?
And of course, we'll still have online access as well, so.
Well, let's start 6:30. Any objections on that? Or
Is
somebody
there
else
anyone
wanna-
else from the public?
Okay. Let's do 6:30 then. Try it out.
On the 22nd.
Okay. Anything else on that? Anybody? No? Okay, approval of May 26, 2020 regular minutes. Do you want to do them separately or together? Doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It's your-
And then how about for June 30th, 2022? Let's do them together. I'll put that in my photo.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve both those sets of minutes as presented.
We have a motion to approve the minutes for both months. Do I hear a second? We have a second by Shelley. Discussion? No discussion. All in favor, by signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Aye. Okay. Minutes are approved. Financial reports. Acceptance of the budget variance.
You have 2 months in your package. You have a June 30, 2022, and July 31st, 2022. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
When I looked through these, I didn't see any red flags or anything, any issues. Looks like we're about on track.
Yep. We're ending the year really well. Good position.
Do I hear a motion to accept the budget variance?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay. Moved by Henry, seconded by Rob. Discussion? discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. All approved. Approval of expenditures.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and move to approve expenditures as presented through check number 30868 through 30964, including electronics payments and transfers, for a grand total of $524,194.57.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jeff. Discussion? No discussion.
I didn't catch anything that caught my eye. Is there anything you want to point out, Nancy?
Nope, they're all pretty regular.
No discussion. Take it to a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, approved. Operations Managers Report.
So this is for July and for August. Hiring is going well. We've been very fortunate to get some really good quality candidates. Bree, who was in training as of the last report, is actually just yesterday going to be signed off in 1 more week, so we'll have full time with her. We've started another that is kind of like a lateral. She's got just under 2 years of experience, and so we're very fortunate to get her because she's already certified with the state and has a lot of training under her belt. So her training's going well in in-house academy. As far as inquiries, we've had one that resulted, 2 external, one that resulted in training and one that was ungrounded, and 1 internal that resulted in training. Wendy Farley, one of our lead dispatchers, and I attended the National AFCO 2022 conference down in California a couple weeks ago, and I was able to go on a scholarship that was granted from Oregon AFCO, so we kind of went 2 for 1. It was really a good experience, especially for our new lead. She had a lot of leadership training, a really quality environment, and it was very well spent time. And that's all I have. Is there any questions?
Any questions, you guys? No questions. Okay, thank you. Technical Managers Report.
So while the sun's out, we've been doing a lot of facility maintenance, removing overgrown shrubs, resealing the parking lot, pruning overgrown trees, and removing some dying ones. And then working on getting quotes for some more upkeep, like replacing some of the rotten wooden trim around the building. Magix, Chandra's working with the group to test new versions of CAD so we can hopefully upgrade soon. MDC, so we're rolling out new maps that are a lot faster, more reliable, a lot more detail. So if there's less reading, more imagery. So McDonald's has a McDonald's logo on the map now. Safety committee, I've been forming the safety committee with Alex to meet regularly and to make sure that everything's tip-top shape. Audio recording, I've been working with Denel, Day Wireless, and Aperture to install new audio recording equipment for the phone lines and radio system.
Which I believe there's an update later on in our packet.
Yes.
Yes.
Any questions? Anyone?
We're gonna talk about the audio recording a little bit later.
We are. I have that, sir.
We'll talk about it later, you said?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Full business radio system. If you might.
Yes, sir. So there's several things within this bucket of the topics here. So as per the agenda, there's nothing forward movement on the Dixie Mountain site. Klatskanai is again stable. There's nothing to discuss there. Corey Hill, as we have visited over actually the past year of the breaking and entering the vandalism of all the radio sites up on top of Corey Hill. Our system, our site, has been completed in the retrofit of the fencing, security systems, The generator, which was repeatedly attacked, has been completely repaired. The thing that was actually taking the longest time was a transfer switch. There's an electronic transfer switch from commercial power to the generator back and forth. That was stolen, and that was a supply chain issue. That has been completed. I've had conversations with our insurance agent, and so we're all buttoning up that claim, so all's well there. In your packet is a document called Haven Acres. Haven Acres is also one of our sites. It resides just to the north of the town of Clatskanie. It is a receive site only. We share that site with Clatskanie PUD. And over this past late winter, early spring, there was a notice degradation of the signal for the microwave system. Again, this is a shared site between the two entities, and working with Day Wireless to determine the cause of that signal loss. It was results from foliage, trees. Trees keep growing, and our towers are only so tall. We worked in partnership with Clatskanie PUD, Day Wireless, and the property owner, which is Evanson Logging, and we negotiated a cost share to remove trees. That took place over the last month. I believe it was in July. We removed half a dozen trees, and the signals were restored to full operation. So that's good news. It's temporary news because, like all things, foliage, it continues to grow. One of the things I noticed at that site was this is an existing site, as I said, with Clatskanie PUD that we share. The site is a rudimentary, it's antennas on top of a telephone pole, and it's not optimal. And so in my conversations with specifically the landowner, what's their level of acceptance if we took it upon ourselves to improve that site? So I spoke with the principal of Evanson Logging, and their only caveat was if it was us, the 911 center, residing on that, they understand it's with Clatskanie PUD. They're happy to have us make site improvements. So this is, again, very preliminary. It's just the initial talks, but in your packet there is a proposal. I'm negotiating with one of our neighboring agencies who has a monopole. It's a heavy-duty monopole. It's 150 feet. And there's some photos there that represent what this tower would look like. Shared that with Day Wireless. I've shared that with the owner of the property, and depending on if we can have access to that tower, then I will start working up a quote to do engineering studies, much like what we did with the Meisner site. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that that's what I'm thinking forward to improve that site and make it a more viable site for the future.
Off the top of your head, do you know the difference in height between the current pole and that tower?
I do. That monopole would be 3 times the height. So we're sitting at about 45, maybe 50 feet, and that's 150.
I would like to say I do appreciate Evanson.
Working with us.
Really good working with any public agency, so hats off to them for sure.
Indeed. Another site that we're working with Day Wireless is the Bald Hill site. This is a site that's basically above Scappoose. It too is suffering from the exact same problem with foliage, not at the site itself. The site itself is owned and maintained and operated by Army Corps of Engineers, and we reside on a guided tower. And the problem that we have is there is a property owner, I believe it's either to the north or the west of our location, and the property owner has a grove of trees, Douglas firs. And this has been an ongoing problem for many years. Day Wireless has had conversations with that property owner, and at least 2 previous administrators of this district has had conversations with that property owner, seeking our expense and time to either trim those trees or remove those trees and compensate the property owner for that, the value of those trees. The owner isn't interested in either. It's private property. So what we're doing is working with Day Wireless, and we're looking at alternatives to circumvent those trees, and that can include several different things. And we're investigating whether to just realign our microwave paths to another site. It may be a district site, it could be another governmental or property owner at another location, even including shooting across into Clark County and then making a loop back into the district system. There's several different pathways we're going to investigate because it's all different costs and microwave shots length. Another option that we're exploring is potentially retrofitting the tower that we are on and making it actually taller. That'll have to work with the Army Corps of Engineers in cooperation with them if they're amenable to that. So again, preliminary stuff, that's stuff that we're working on because we want to improve that site and the services that it provides for us.
Why not doing this monopole deal up on Bald?
That's a possibility. That just takes more time. So
How high is that at?
my understanding, it's rather short. It's around 50 or 60 feet.
So again, a 150-foot pole would get above a lifetime and a half's growth of any trees.
True. The difference between adding to a tower that already exists versus ripping it out and then engineering a new foundation and structure is time, a lot of time. And I do have a question of even permitting. While we'd have to probably go through land use because we're totally removing what we have and placing something completely different. So all of that's on the table. It's just.
I would say whatever it takes on these things to do it as quickly as we possibly can. I mean, we've had those struggles down in Scappoose with police and fire radios and that kind of thing, and I think some of that comes out of, in fact, probably a lot of it comes out of the Bald site being occluded by trees. And guess what? We live in Northwest Oregon. Trees happen, but this is the first I think we've heard of the Haven Acres coverage issues. Man, we have access to some surplus equipment and things out there. So whatever I think that we should do, new radio system in the future or not, this is regular maintenance stuff. I think that
we're pursuing it.
We've budgeted for.
Correct.
So we have more info by next meeting on that, or?
I hope so.
Yeah. Because I mean that helps that Scappoose end. I mean that's the way to go. I mean.
Like I said, I have to thank Mike. We've had a couple of discussions on that twice this week about fast tracking this because, as I said at previous meetings, this has been a long-term issue that, in theory, this was one of the sites, I think we heard early in testimony, that was going to be moved to Dixie Mountain per our previous consultant. The problem is with Dixie Mountain, it's been over a year of trying to get approval from the FAA to co-locate with them.
That's correct.
So the thought was here is doing what we can. The quickest solution, because of like Mike just mentioned about permitting for new towers or something, is just to see if we can find an alternate link with that microwave to get that back up on site to restore the coverage in Scappoose to where it should be in South County.
Yeah, I'd be curious. So when that work is done, will we be able to measure how much more
reception and transmission?
Versus what we're doing now.
Correct.
I think that would make some of those folks a lot happier, I would imagine.
Well, from being a user of that area, I will let you know that it is a night and day difference when that site went down.
Yeah. Well, obviously that's going to be a priority.
Continuing on, sir, Meisner site improvement. So everybody recalls that we're rebuilding the Meisner site. Where we are today, as I reported a couple months ago, we did in essence, RFP. It's called a ITB, intend to bid process for the civil construction of that site. That process closed. Day Wireless Civil Side was the winning bidder for that construction. Where we are is we're finalizing the contract between the district and Day Wireless Civil. I spoke with our legal counsel on that yesterday. She was wrapping up that contract. I expect to see it today. She was hoping to have it yesterday, but called me last night and said that we should see it today. And we're moving forward. Emergency microwave repair and replacement, that's we have a topic in new business for that. Tow service contracts, there's nothing to report there. That's in the hands of the county. Next on the topic is ambulance service area, the ASA. Again, this is a county responsibility. We are a participant in that process. I have a draft report that the consultant, Fitch and Associates, has asked me to review. I will be doing that. I have a meeting with them scheduled for next week. They have some follow-up questions from the PSEP's perspective on the ASA. So we're following through with that.
Okay. Any questions from anybody on that, any of that stuff? No? Okay.
I want to go backwards just a moment because there is a bullet point up there, Next Gen Radio System Improvement. We have the chair of the advisory committee here, Mike Russell. And if it's the pleasure of the board, I'd turn the floor to Mr. Russell.
Thank you, Chair Holsey, Director. My name is Mike Russell. I'm Columbia County Public Works Director, also serving currently as chair of the Columbia 911 Communications District Advisory Committee. And I'm here to talk about our last meeting, which was focused on the Next Gen radio system, and just relay to you our recommendations that came out of that meeting. So the advisory committee's been involved all along the way here. We're involved in some user interviews, vendor presentations, interactions with the consultant individually, and then together as a group, reviewed the reports along the way, and then culminated in the final report by Federal Engineering, which you've also been briefed on. After that report, there's just been regular discussions at our meeting about the issues that the report brought up. This is where it's kind of bogged down over the last couple of years. The issues of VHF versus 700, 800 megahertz, the cost, and this issue of sole ownership versus partnering with another agency. All of those, there's, I could say, no consensus, and it's been difficult to provide you with a singular recommendation. So I called a special meeting to focus on the radio system upgrade in June, and I just wanted to report to you what we discussed there and how that ended up. So there were three main decisions that were made. One of them had to do with the proposal from the city of Scappoose to do additional study and partnership with the city to conduct that study. It was the advisory committee's recommendation to proceed with the studies we have and not interject another study. The advisory committee felt that we had the information we need to move forward. There's just a general sense of we just need to get off top dead center. Let's just move forward. And so anyway, that's related to that. I will say the city didn't have an opportunity or didn't take the opportunity to provide a formal presentation of their offer, which I thought was unfortunate, but I'm not sure that would have affected the committee's recommendation, they seemed pretty clear that they wanted to move forward and not invest in another study. That's my sense of the discussion. The second item was investigating going to a hybrid frequency system. So my intent with the meeting was to, okay, let's see if we can come to some consensus on VHF versus 700, 800. And Director Fletcher presented an option that he had been discussing with partners about a hybrid frequency system, VHF and 700, 800. It adds more expense because you're having to service two frequency ranges, but it may get us moving forward and addressing user concerns and advocacy on both sides of that issue. So the decision was made to investigate that more. I think the advisory committee wants some more information about that. What are the costs? What would that require? And so that was the general direction, to continue to investigate a hybrid option. The third thing that we discussed was an offer from WACA to provide some equipment. And maybe you've heard this already too, I'm not sure, but some brand new equipment that hasn't been cracked open yet, some used towers. I will say the towers are coming this way. That is happening. So the recommendation from the advisory committee was to proceed with verifying the offer from Clackamas County for decommissioned towers and the equipment for 3 full P25 800 megahertz sites sitting in boxes and never opened. So we wanted to verify that the numbers that were given to Director Fletcher were correct, about $300,000 per site. Seemed like a good deal, seemed like something the advisory committee felt like we couldn't really pass up. It does get us into the 800 megahertz situation though. And so I think the committee recognized that, but felt like the opportunity for a pretty good price on equipment and some towers that we will be needing, we couldn't pass that offer up. So it was more verify the offer, and if it is a good deal, come back to the committee and we can make a recommendation to move forward or not. So those were the 3 main decisions. Proceed with the studies we have, investigate going to a hybrid frequency system, and then verify the offer from neighboring agencies for equipment that they have. That's all I had. I'm available for questions or discussion.
Any questions or discussion for him?
What is it? Comment-wise, I know it's been tough for the advisory committee, trying to figure out whether they wanted to stay on VHF, because that's currently what they own. It's the cheapest for the end users, because all the radios are already VHF, versus taking the jump to 700 or 800 megahertz. So I know that's the advisory committee's requested a lot of information. I hope we were able to facilitate with the vendors what you needed to make that decision. And I just want to thank you for the hard work. I know that was kind of tough for your committee to work through for a while.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, may I clarify something?
Sure.
The city of Scappoose came in front of this board, I can't remember what meeting it was, and requested to partner with you on the proposal and engineering that Mr. Russell cited. It was in between, so that request was made and the city was bringing back what the board requested, which was what exactly are you proposing, city of Scappoose? We were in the process of doing that when the special advisory committee meeting was called. We had not had a chance to prepare that information and present it to this board. Furthermore, the agenda for that special advisory committee was never published, and so when we walked in the door, the city manager, the police chief, and myself, we had no idea that this decision was even on the table to be made. So we had no opportunity to provide the information that was requested of us to this board, and then this special advisory committee comes along and makes this decision that we had no idea was even going to occur. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there was no attempt to subvert the city's interest in that meeting or anything. It just is the way it happened. And yeah, we could have done a better job of getting the city involved in that meeting and being on the agenda. That's true.
Sorry, you guys.
Any other discussion or questions, anything?
Well, I appreciate the work the advisory committee has done. I continue to feel like, you know, if we can get free towers from somebody, that's something we can use no matter what system we have or whatever. I'm a little concerned myself, seeing how we still haven't gotten a decision made as to whether 700 or 800 or VHF is the best for our county. That it would be short-sighted of us to buy garage sale brand new equipment in 800, which forces you down the path of 800 when you don't know. I shouldn't say you don't know. Maybe you all know. I don't know what is the best direction to go for my vote when it comes time for us to head into a new radio system. I feel like the only way we're going to get there is to hire a new Mark Pallins or, you know, an agency, somebody like that, to finalize this. Because as you said, Mike, we're sitting at the precipice of this decision, and we've hired people, and we've got everybody with different opinions that are sound and good, and everybody with needs that are different and varied and diverse. But we have never yet once had somebody come in front of this board and say, for what you have topographically or anything else, absolutely you're going to get better customer service, which is what we're talking about. We're talking about people waiting for a 911 response by doing this system versus that system versus this system. And we've had folks that have come in front of us that have given us professional analysis and have given us a cost list of everything from, say, a new system for $11 million on the VHF side up to partnering on an 800 system with a neighboring agency at $30 million something odd dollars. And even in all of that information and analysis, we've never had anyone, even though I've asked for it a number of times, that have said the difference, the delta between $11 million and $30 million is going to save even one life. Nobody's ever told us what the value for that extra $20 million is. And I don't care if it's VHF or 800 or 700, whatever's going to give us the best service in our county. And we've got to get there. You know, we're sitting here, we're spinning, and we're having concerns brought forth by first responders as well as our own employees and everyone else about the fact that we haven't made a decision on this. We've got to hire the right person and get us off of this precipice. And I appreciate everybody's work. I appreciate all of the analysis from everyone out there on this. But you know, I think that if we're talking about buying 800 equipment, even if it is at fire sale prices, I would never want to be bound to a future decision for a complete radio system upgrade. Wouldn't we look like fools if we bought $300,000 800 sites and then decided to go 700? I mean, radio towers are easy. You know, you hang anything you want off of those things. But anyway, that's just my opinion. But I do appreciate all the work, and I appreciate everyone's conversation on it. But I think at some point in time, very, very soon, we need to figure out who we're gonna hire to either be a project engineer or project manager or whatever you want to call it, that is going to be able to gather all of this information and all of this data and bring it to this board so we can make an appropriate decision. And if you don't mind, I'll mention the school situation. You know, it's only been the last very few months that the coverage in schools issue has come up, and it's been brought forth and things like that. But, you know, I think that some of those rocks are being thrown at this board that we don't care about what goes on in schools. Well, I have to also say that school districts and the school boards have responsibilities there too. There, I'm sure, has never been anyone that has brought to this board, and maybe probably not to our administrator either, that we don't care about what goes on in schools. But is it this board's responsibility to upgrade every school, or is that the responsibility of the school board and the local first responders, whether it's the cities or the fire districts or the private ambulance services or whoever's providing those services, to work in cooperation? So I appreciate the superintendent's discussion about that, but again, we haven't had this school discussion until the last several months, and I think part of that is what we're seeing with these attacks and things in schools, relevant subject matter. But I would certainly stand up and say that it's, you know, the 911 district has no right or responsibility or jurisdiction to mandate that the school districts put any equipment in their schools to provide better radio coverage. So that certainly has to be a partnership discussion. And for the citizens out there, certainly, you know, it needs to be embraced by all and not just blamed on the 911 district. So with all of that, I think that we need to think about hiring somebody to get us off this subject into the future.
So go ahead, Rob.
I was going to say, again, any radio system that we decide to pursue in the future, it's going to require having the support and the buy-in from the end users. And so due to that, you know, we've kind of been waiting for the advisory committee, who, as a general group, has now decided, yes, it's time to leave VHF. The question we look at then now is it the standalone, or do we partner up? And I agree with Henry that I think now that we know the path is clear, that we're going towards the VH700 800 system, that it is time to get a consultant on board to be able to help us through this process, have an objective outside professional where that's their specialty. Talking about this City of Scappoose engineering study, I'm a little concerned that the cart might be a little bit in front of the horse. Engineering study, great. Give us the information that we can use, maps, coverage maps, that like the advisory board wanted. Just in some late correspondence, it looks to me it's almost morphed into an RFP. And I'm not quite too sure if we're there yet, because if we get a consultant or not, and we decide to research if we're going to do a partnership or do standalone, if we're getting an RFP, we would need to approach the different vendors at the same time so they have a chance to offer, do a study, and give us an RFP without knowing what the other party has already provided. Because it's not, we don't usually go to one vendor, say, give us a quote, let it be public record, and then go to another vendor and say, here, now give us a quote for this. So that just, in the back of my mind, I just want to make sure, I'm just kind of concerned with the study that's coming from the city, is it just an engineering study for information, or has it itself kind of morphed into a RFP, which is maybe just getting the cart in front of the horse just a little bit, that may cause some contracting issues when we go out for bids down the road.
Well, and maybe I should ask this question, but you know, I haven't heard yet if VHF is off the table. I mean, and I've tried to research it at home, and to be honest, I mean, I will be 100% honest, I am not a radio guru, but you know, I'm confused. I've heard up at my end, you know, they want to keep VHF, just what Mike was saying, and then I believe Scappoose end is more the 700, 800 end, and then law enforcement, depending on who you talk to, they're either 700, 800, or VHF, depending on where they're at. I mean, how do we come to that decision? And is that what you're kind of getting at, Henry, is to hire someone to get there, or?
We've seen all of the maps. We've seen all of the studies. If we'd still have a radio consultant on site or on contract if he hadn't passed away, in that work, and there's value, I guess, to every different system. What Mike's saying is at a meeting that they held, people that showed up there and voted to have us head towards 700, 800, right?
Let me clarify. There is still no consensus on the frequency thing.
Yeah.
What the advisory committee did ask is Mike to pursue the equipment and come back to the committee with information verifying that it was 300,000, then we would make a decision or make a recommendation about whether or not to move forward with buying that equipment or not. So it has not been decided. It's still up in the air.
Well, we can't let, cut price equipment determine what system we choose. I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all.
If I jump in there, so Mr. Russell's correct. There is no consensus, and in my conversations with the various users across the county, they are at opposite ends, and you are correct. There is a whole segment of our users that want us to stay on VHF. It's what they know. It's what they've experienced for 30 years. It's a comfort thing for them, and it works for them. It's also the least expensive, so there's that. So money does drive a lot of this. The more Highway 30 core are more aligned with going into the 700-800 realm. Again, that's what they use. They interact more so with our partner neighboring agencies that are already on 700-800. It is also the most expensive. So I don't know how to get over that hump of pointing and throwing a dart and say this is it. But maybe an independent district employed consultant that's all their only focus is. Maybe they can help educate both the user group, the board, the advisory committee, and help you make the final decision. And it does come down to what Rob was saying. Eventually, on the option table is whether to own and operate ourselves or to partner. That's a viable option. But you're right, Henry, there are pros and cons to every single system that have been provided to us as a potential solution.
The bulk of the calls are the Highway 30 corridor that you're doing.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Correct.
That's by far the bulk of that it's the outlying areas that are getting the fewer calls, and that's the group that wants to stay VHF.
For the most part, that's correct.
Okay.
When we're out banging on doors trying to get a bond passed to buy this radio system, because that's the only way it's going to be paid for is by either going out and asking the voters for 10, 12, 14 million dollars or asking the voters for 30 million perhaps plus. If we can bang on their doors and say we absolutely will save lives by spending that extra $20 million, you're going to get voters or more voters to agree with that, and it's going to make it easier for us to fund something like that. But if we don't have that documentation, if we don't have that ability to, with a straight face, be able to say, we're selling you the Cadillac because the Cadillac's going to save lives, I don't know how we pass a bond. So
I agree.
We have to get there somehow, and we obviously need help in doing it.
Now, is there, once we determine the direction and put a dollar amount to it, is there some federal money, grant money, any help to offset costs? Has anybody kind of looked into that, or is that?
So again, pros and cons to everything. Are there grants out there? Yes. They take time, they're complicated, and they're not guaranteed. So if you hang your hat on, I'm going to get grant funds for X number of dollars, there's a time limit on those grant fundings, and you're in competition. So do you wait, or do you just move through a general obligation bond? Do you You can even finance these things. There's government finance, there's leasing systems, there's raising our special option levy. Those are all options on the table. The benefit that this district has, much like fire districts, is we do belong to Special Districts Association of Oregon, and they have a whole division that does nothing but funding projects, consultation, helping us with tax questions, and that's who I have been relying on over the last couple of years for guidance on all of this topic, specifically related to the radio system. Getting us in the starter blocks, whether it's a general obligation bond, a special option levy, grants, donations, I mean, really bake sales.
Mr. Chair, I can clarify something if the board will allow.
Go ahead.
As far as the Tate engineering goes, I would encourage this board to wait. It's going to be done in October, the engineering, to see if it addresses the questions that this board has. I think that it will, the engineering piece. As far as Mr. Anderson's concern goes about the RFP aspect, this pricing is all published publicly. It's GSA or NASPO pricing, so there's no hiding these prices. The intent of Tate also doing a proposal is to give this board a more realistic idea of what you're looking at cost-wise. That doesn't mean it's going to be the cost or the final bid if you go out to RFP that Tate would offer, but it gives a much more realistic price of what a system that covers all of the end user requirements, what they have already told this board they want. All of that is being considered in this proposal, and there's a thorough explanation comparison in between VHF and 700, 800, so it can inform this board on what the differences are. I'll tell you already that there's now been multiple engineers, including Federal Engineering's engineers, that have said 700, 800 is the way to go. Tate's engineers, we just finished the coverage study last week. They worked on it for a month. They also thought that VHF was the way to go when they started. They also thought that a hybrid system was the way to go when they started. At the end, their engineer, no thumbs on it, no nothing, came back and looked at the comparison in between VHF, 700, 800, and was able to definitively say that 700 and 800 is the way to go in this county because the noise floor is way too high on VHF. They specifically said that you would need as many, if not more, VHF sites if you stay on VHF because of the interference issues that we inherently face in this county. So all of that information with an engineer is going to come before you as soon as we finish our proposal, or excuse me, our engineering, and Tate's offering to do a proposal too. But again, that pricing is all based off of publicly available GSA NASPO pricing. And if this board decides they want to go out to an RFP, that's great, I encourage that, but at least you have a more realistic figure as to what you're looking at, and you're meeting all of the end user requirements that they have already said that they need. Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody? Okay, let's move on.
New business?
New business. Haven Acres site improvement.
So, Mr. President, I've already covered the Haven Acres site in our site reports.
New recording system lease.
Okay, so the Columbia 911 district has a recording platform for all telephone and radio communications. Our existing system, which is called VoicePrint, is at its end of life. It started experiencing some technical difficulties a few months ago. The hesitancy that I've experienced, or that I was planning for, we knew we were going to replace our recording system. The problem is, or at least one of the challenges we have, is recording systems are dependent on what we're recording, obviously. The environment we're in an analog system today. Our voice systems are analog. The risk we run of buying a full-blown system to replace what we have today is just fine, except we know, as we just got done talking about, any new radio system, if the district chooses to go to digital, it changes things dramatically and exponentially cost differences between analog system versus a digital system. So I've been hesitant to just jump in and buy something that technically we might scrap within a year or two. We did work with our current vendor, VoicePrint, which is owned by NICE, another corporation, and we asked for a replacement strategy from them. We did receive their information. It was less than stellar, both in cost and services that they would provide. So we opened up and looked for alternate solutions, and the best solution was presented by a company called Equiture. Equiture is a national recording platform used by many public safety agencies, federal organizations, alphabet organizations, everything from NASA, FBI, etc. What they offer us is a short-term lease, very low cost upfront, and the ability to upgrade or not with no penalty. It's below my spending authority, so I authorized the lease. The annual due for the lease is $7,700. There is some initial upfront costs for training and installation. We're working with Day Wireless, our 911 phone provider, and Equiture to install this equipment. The alternative is in the six figures if we were to purchase, and so I thought this was the best option to keep us moving forward on a brand new platform, but at low upfront cost and annual cost.
Who else is using this?
Locally, Clackamas County, City of Lake Oswego, Washington County, believe Willamette Valley, and then nationally there are multiple organizations, FBI, NASA, NSA.
It certainly seems like a value. I mean, compared to buying the equipment, I mean, sometimes these recording devices seem to be the size of a laptop and they're $70,000. And this looks like $40,000 for 5 years.
Correct.
If my math is right.
Yeah.
24-hour coverage, all that stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
And just to verify, the recording format's not proprietary.
That is not.
So unlike our previous vendors where we have to keep the 20, 30-year-old player to be able to go through the archives,
This is all
anything
digital.
new we'll be able to access.
It resides on a server.
Any questions, or do you need to know?
I don't need
this
any
information?
more action. Thank you.
Okay. Where are we, the M&I quote?
Sir, so before you, this has been coming, you've been, know this has been coming. This is actually phase 3 of our microwave system upgrades. So as a reminder for everyone, our radio system is a combination of system of systems. It's both LMR, land mobile radio, push to talk, but there's a subsystem of the radio system that's our microwave system. It runs in conjunction with it, it keeps timing, it passes our simulcast signal from one tower to the other. So if we're standing here in St. Helens and we key up the mic on fire dispatch, people in Clatskanie and Vernonia hear the same thing at the exact same time. It's a simulcast system, and that's a byproduct of the microwave system. And we started a process a couple years ago of upgrading it. The beauty of upgrading this microwave system is it's agnostic. It does not care what it transports, the media that it transports. So even though we're on our existing antique radio system, should and when we move to a new system, this system will be compatible with it as well. So it's money spent well today, and it will benefit us into the future. Initially, our phase 1 was a new pathway between our Clatskanie site and Green Mountain, which is in the state of Washington. We diversified that path. We invested just about $250,000 to make that project complete, and it was a total success. The district experienced intermittent signal fade throughout the year due to environmental conditions, smoke, fog, snow, even reflection off the Columbia River. Those have been completely eliminated. Phase 2 we did last year, and that was a pathway between the Clatskanie site and the Columbia Heights site above Longview. That was an investment of $254,000. This is phase 3, and this is a three-pronged approach. We need a new pathway between Dispatch here and Green Mountain. As you know, we're rebuilding the Meisner site, and so we're projecting putting new microwave equipment there, and that pathway is from Meisner to Clatskanie. And then a pathway between Clatskanie and Quarry Hill, the Vernonia site. This will be the third phase. It's a investment of $736,000 and some change. We're still staying with our Microwave Networks Incorporated. So before you is a bid quote of $669,586. We put a contingency on top of that. We're requesting permission to sign the contract for a total of $736,545. In your packet is a more detailed background of the project, the history of it, and where we're headed. And to entertain any questions.
$32,000 in shipping seems a little excessive.
Well, I'm going to tell you that that number has changed dramatically even since I wrote this, or when I first drafted this document 2 months ago. Shipping has continued to escalate. Yes.
What is, I mean,
It's,
is this like a couple of semis?
It is.
And
Yep.
flag cars and police escorts and stuff?
It is, it's dedicated shipping. It is in 53-foot trailers. There are multiple. We have the antennas for this system are 6-foot dishes. So it takes up a lot of space. And then there are racks of radio equipment. So yes, it is expensive.
Man. Does this all fit, besides the shipping increases, and I'm sure the other stuff, this all fits within or pretty close to our original budget for the entire project?
So I thank you for that clarification. All these funds were accounted for and planned for in our budget process. They're all accounted for, and funding is available.
And it just, so that we all can hear this is all work that's gonna likely, regardless of our new radio system, what type it is or anything else, these sites and these upgrades are gonna be able to be used in the new.
So
new
the
world of our
equipment
radio?
absolutely will be. The sites are always dependent on the engineer design of a new radio system. So our existing sites today may or may not be a part of any new system. Most likely, most of them will be staying in operation. There could be a slight addition to additional sites, and then what we would do is either add antennas or just redirect pathways from our existing sites to any potential new sites. But that's all part of an engineering design of a new system. But this equipment absolutely is brand spanking new, it's industry standard, and it's transferable to any new platform.
Picked up and moved if we need to.
Absolutely.
So I'm assuming you're looking for a motion?
Motion.
All right, do I have a motion for the Microwave Networks Incorporated? Or is it $736,545 for the microwaves?
I had one other question. I'm trying to remember what it was, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry. Well, I'll make that motion. I'll move approval of that.
Okay,
That
we
way I
have a
can bring that
motion
up in discussion.
from Henry. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff, and then discussion.
I had a question on the Proteus MX training. Up to 10 students conducted on site. Who would be?
So that would be Day Wireless, and I consulted with them on the value added, whether that was recommended or not, and they will be our hands-on here as they are our service provider, and so that's training for them on the equipment and monitoring. We also have monitoring as part of this platform. So in this case, Day Wireless is our contracted radio vendor. So Day Wireless would be able to monitor the microwave system. So they would get alarms, performance reports, etc.
So I assume we wouldn't send 10 students up there at one time for this training all at once.
No, it would be the vendor sending their instructor out here.
Okay, and so again, looking down the road, because we don't know what that exactly looks like, let's say at some point in time we use Mr. Miller's tape analogy. Let's say that was our new radio system, that we had somebody besides a Motorola /Day tie-in. We could send other people up. I mean, we can save those 10 spots for future training, things like that, or does this all kind of have to happen at the very start? Or
That's a good question.
I mean, for $12,000, it's kind of something that it seems like we should be able to put in our pocket for the
So
future
if we choose whatever radio system we go to in the future, if we own and operate and we're utilizing another vendor to maintain our system, or if we get to a point at some point in time where we, the district, hire our own technicians to manage our system, we would foot the bill for training for those people.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
My only question is just to clarify. I see initially the quote was May 23rd with a validity of 60 days. So even in recent contact, and they're still standing by on this.
Yes, so I had conversations last night, in fact, with our M&I rep, and they're holding steady with their quote here. So yes, sir. The delay has been me, not anything else. I've been out on medical leave for the last couple of months, and so all of this is homework, catching up.
Well, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Technology and facilities specialist position.
So the district is seeking board approval to add a technology and facilities specialist position. The FTE position already exists. District is budgeted X number of people for different divisions, operations, administration, technical services. And recently we've gone through a change, and our GIS position is now being contracted out, and thus that slot, that FTE slot, is open and available. We don't need a GIS specialist. What we need is a IT support person to assist Nathan and a facilities person to help with grounds. And so we worked with district staff to develop a job description, a pay scale. The district met with the personnel committee to go over this. The funding is already in the budget. It's just a change of job description and job title, and getting your approval.
Rob and I met with Nancy last week as personnel committee and went through this, and I think the argument is sound for the change, the way that we've done that, and in penciling out some of the cost savings of that Nathan provided and Nancy provided of stuff that we've been able to bring in-house versus contracting out with IT companies, it certainly shaves off, it's overall a savings down the road by using these GIS person funds and then saving the funds that we were paying to outside agencies. So with that, I would move that we approve the creation of this technology and facilities specialist position.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Shelley. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Point of order.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead and open for discussion.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I keep forgetting. Discussion.
No, I think this will be good. I've heard from a couple of the end users about feeling there's a little bit of delay sometimes in getting a response back on a few things. And I think that kind of redistributing basically Nathan's just task saturated at this point, and he's not able to be as responsive to some of our end users as we'd like him to be. And so this is going to take a significant amount of work off his plate so he can be available to them.
Any other discussion? None? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. Director's updates.
We're going to jump over to page 2. That's an administrative compensation adjustment. Going backwards again, in our June meeting, the board approved MOA with the Dispatcher Association. That was an adjustment for COLA, and it has been a historic practice of the district to, at the same time, you make adjustments to the represented staff. The non-rep staff are also adjusted as well. Again, this was brought before the Personnel Committee, and so the district staff is looking for board's pleasure on moving on this topic.
And this is built in the budget, right?
It has been, yes.
Okay.
That's,
I
for the
just
record,
assumed.
it is already budgeted for and planned during the budget process.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't remember. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, again, after a personnel committee meeting, which the minutes are in the packet and the descriptions of all that, from when Rob and I met a week or so ago, or a couple weeks ago maybe now, I would move that we make the administrative staff wage adjustments as presented.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second for discussion.
Yep. Discussion, go ahead, Rob.
No, I just.
Oh, you reminded me? Oh, good deal. Any discussion?
I would just point out too that we constantly try to keep parity between our administrative staff and our represented staff, and have for many years, and I think that helps us, we think, to keep and get good people. I do want to point out in here that Mike's salary is not reflected in this yet because we need to do an evaluation, and the board hasn't had the opportunity to do that with Mike's being off because of his illness and that kind of thing. So we'll do that in the future, and then come back with a recommendation for his compensation. Did I miss anything, Rob?
No.
Any other discussion? Anybody else? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right.
Next up, Mr. President, is a reminder of Special Districts Association of Oregon Summer Conference. It's scheduled for September 15th. Is it held?
It's in Salem.
Okay.
I included the brochure for it. It would be very good training for Jeff and Shelley too. If you can attend it at all, just let me know.
I'm gonna be pretty itchy because it's right at the beginning of school.
I'm gonna be out of town from that,
Okay.
so I won't be able to do it.
Do we have dates yet for the annual conference?
I have
In
not
February?
yet. It's usually, I don't know where it's gonna, I think it's in Sun River this year.
Yeah, because it might help, especially, for those of us that have schedules far-reaching that,
I will find the
as soon as we can
dates.
get the dates, we can get
Okay.
the calendar.
Anything else?
Once I get my
Oh,
calendars figured out, I'll let you know for sure.
Thank you.
So if I may, speaking of SDO training, have you two of you had a chance to try the online?
I've done some, yeah.
How's that?
Done
How's that worked out for you?
good, good. I did some of it this summer, I'm continuing on, so.
Perfect.
that's,
Yeah, that's some kind of fairly new that they've enhanced since the COVID stuff.
Yeah, it's actually pretty nice.
Anything else, Mike?
And it's just director's update.
Okay.
So, I'd like to take some time to address several topics of conversation that have been taking place both at these district board meetings as well as conversations taking place in the community and at other public meetings regarding this district. As been discussed in public comment and in the board's meeting today is the topic of in-building radio coverage. Over the past several months, Scappoose City Councilor Miller has made public comments regarding the recent school shootings in Uvalde, Texas. This follows directly with Major Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, Sandy Hook, or even as far back as Columbine. These are tragic events, and everybody shares in the fear and apprehension of those things happening anywhere, including here. The district is not immune to that. What is interesting is the topic of in-building radio coverage. There are many public safety radio systems in the state of Oregon. And while we all have the same mission, how we go about the mission is always a little bit different based on lots of things, technology, capabilities. But there are two things I can guarantee that each of us have in common. One, without a doubt, I totally believe that all of us who own and operate public safety radio systems believe and support and promote and even encourage the use and installation of in-building radio system enhancements. We all actively support those vendors who install these systems and assist in the testing of these systems both during installation and their annual maintenance. The other thing that we all have in common is that not one of us as radio system operators have none, zero authority over the requirements, enforcement, placement, or even the ability to insist on this equipment being used. The city councilor correctly states that there are indeed Oregon State Building Code requirements for these devices. They are listed in state statute. The councilor is also correct that there are Oregon State Fire Code in statute that describe in great detail where this equipment is required, how it is installed, maintained, and tested. That's all true. In a recent meeting, the council stated that in all of Columbia County, there are only 2 schools who have such technology within them. I don't know if that's actual or not, but even if it is true, I think the logical question would be, why is that? How did they get there? Why don't any other schools have this equipment? Are there any other buildings in Columbia County that has this technology? The answer is yes. How did this come to be? What the counselor fails to disclose is that found within both the building codes and the fire codes are details of which buildings meet mandatory requirements and those that are exempt. Those state statutes also clearly define who is the responsible party for the installation and oversight and even the enforcement of these devices. It's sad to say, but he fails to mention that it is the responsibility of the property owners. They are the ones who are responsible for the purchase and installation of this equipment. The next question to be answered is there any governmental agency who has oversight or enforcement responsibilities for these requirements? Yes, there is. The agency who has the legal and statutory authority over these devices is the Fire Marshal's Office. This information is not new. These allegations against the 911 Dispatch Center have been made by the City Councilor for many years, despite him being advised in person, in writing, by both the 911 District as well as the Fire Marshal. A few months back, I attended a meeting of the Scappoose City Council where this topic was again brought up. I explained to the councilor and his peers on the council of this same information. Also in attendance was actually the Fire Marshal himself, who publicly spoke to this issue and confirmed that what I was saying was in fact true and accurate. Just for clarification, Columbia 911 is a special communications district within the state of Oregon. We are not a fire department, and I, as the administrator, am not a fire marshal. The only authority that this governing body of this district has is to impose a tax on real property within Columbia County in order to fund the operations of the 911 center. But even imposing this tax is only done if the voters of the county approve the tax measure. We have no more ability to insist or install any radio equipment in any private or public property than it is for the fire district to force you to install fire suppression sprinklers in your existing homes, even though it's in your and the fire district's best interest. Columbia County is surrounded by other public safety radio systems. I can guarantee you that if you ask the Bureau of Emergency Communications or the Bureau of Technical Services for the City of Portland, that they have not installed in-building radio systems for the literally thousands of buildings within Multnomah County that meet the requirements. Washington County, Clackamas County each have 911 centers. They each have public safety radio systems, and I can guarantee you those entities do not install, pay for, or maintain these devices either. In fact, the city of Scappoose has far more authority to enact ordinances to mandate all sorts of things. So I must ask, why is it that the school district, who owns the properties and buildings, the school district who hires and employs staff, as well as they are entrusted to educate and care for the safety of the children from their own communities, why has this equipment not been installed? Why has the city not provided the funds to the school district for this endeavor? Clearly, the city has been the recipient of hundreds of thousands of dollars in federal ARPA funds this year and has total discretion on how those funds are spent. And just so everyone knows, Columbia 911 Communications District did not receive any ARPA funds as we were exempt from the state and federal distribution. To have an elected official place this issue at the 911 District's doorstep when he clearly knows the truth, and then to state that Columbia 911 does not care for the safety of the county's children is rather appalling. I have contact information for every fire marshal for each fire district in our jurisdiction. If you're interested in speaking with them yourself, or I have the contact information for the Chief Oregon State Fire Marshal, and you can reach out to her as well. Another topic of conversation has been premise history. Premise history has nothing to do with the radio system. It has everything to do with our CAD system. CAD stands for Computer-Aided Dispatch. It is the primary tool of the 911 center. Every call for service, every resource, every dispatch data set resides within CAD. Premise history is a feature and a function of the CAD system. In essence, to be really simple, it is the diary of CAD. So every call for service that is sent to a specific location creates a diary entry. That diary entry is premise history. The premise history will show the date, time of a call, what type of a call, whether it was law enforcement, fire, or EMS. It'll show the CAD incident number. It'll show who responded to the call. It's literally a diary entry of CAD. But I don't think that premise history is the issue that the city councilor is describing. In his story of concern, he describes the potential of a known or suspected person who makes threats to harm public safety personnel, or perhaps a known or suspected location of hazards and even booby traps. Those scenarios are real. It's true we have those types of information within CAD. However, in the old CAD system, those were called BOLOs, B-O-L-O, be on the lookout. In a new CAD system, they're called caution notes, where premise history data sets equal into the hundreds of thousands of entries, because remember, it is a diary entry of every call for service to a known location. There's hundreds of thousands of those in CAD. BOLOs, now caution notes, equal into the hundreds. We have hundreds of records in caution notes, and they really pertain to hazards to responding personnel, or access information. Caution notes include a lot more than just potential bad guy information. It has to do with access to buildings, building alarm codes, gate codes, anything to get into a site. Those are all protected information, and we maintain those records every single day. We keep them current and validated constantly. BOLOs, the old CAD system, when we moved to a new CAD system 4.5 years ago, we exported every single old BOLO record, and then we hand entered them into the new CAD system under caution notes. They have always been there. They're there today. They will always be there. Premise history, if we're really worried about the history of an address, so today, if we ran the premise history for the Fred Meyer address in Scappoose, we would literally see hundreds, maybe thousands of entries, because it is a diary entry for an address. But that's all it is. It's a history of a call for service. Caution notes is the scenario that the counselor is describing. If he's concerned about premise history from the old CAD system, we didn't get rid of those records either. We purposely maintained that old CAD system for over 3 years, specifically to maintain those CAD records. They were 24 hours available to the dispatchers on the floor. They never went away. Even the end users were able to see those records because the CAD team built a link to that data set. Today, if you went onto the CAD mobile screen in a patrol car, a fire apparatus, an ambulance, and you see their MDC screen, you will see one of the buttons has a big bold word, priors. Priors is premise history. It's always been there. It's there today, and it will always be there. In my opinion, we're being gaslit. The counselor has concerns about surplus radio towers. Acquisition and repurposing of radio towers is a very common practice all across this country. The towers we have an opportunity to receive were specifically and architecturally designed to be used for exactly what they have been doing. They're public safety wireless communications towers. The only reason this other agency is replacing these same towers is due to their needs for larger and more robust loading requirements than Columbia County has a need for. They were perfectly safe towers and will be purposely dismantled by professional tower constructors who will be itemizing, photographing, and tagging each component, marking them for easy rebuilding. They will load them and professionally transport them to a storage location for the district. to be eventually used or not. If we don't choose to use them, we too can surplus them to another agency that has a need. This is a common practice used everywhere. As for the counselor's concern for structural integrity and the ever-present threat of earth movement, all of our site constructions take these potential threats into account. An immediate example of this is our current construction project for our Meisner site. Right here is the structural construction documents designed by a nationally recognized engineering firm to rebuild a tower there. What this transfer of ownership represents to the district, and more importantly to the very large cost savings. On average, the towers that we are set to receive are costing us about $10,000. That's purposely being dismantled by professional tower builders, transported, everything I just described, and given to us. Included that, we receive all of the original engineering documents for each tower, which we would then turn over to an engineering firm of our choosing, which we have done with Meisner, to reconstruct that tower. The alternative, of course, is to buying brand new. But if his concern is about the general obligation bond and the project cost, why wouldn't we save hundreds of thousands of dollars when we can? The district continues to make improvements to this the existing radio system. Everybody in this room, all of our advisors, all of our users know that the system needs replaced. We understand that, and we're making steps to do that. We've heard a lot of conversation this morning about where we are and how do we make that next step. That's a conversation with the users and the board of directors. That doesn't mean we're ignoring our existing system. We continue to operate and maintain it and make improvements to it. We have a vendor who have a monthly contract for services of all of our sites. They make monthly reports for those sites, and we make an annual expenditure of excess of $62,000 for that. I explained the upgrades of our microwave system. That's part and parcel of our radio system. I've explained that phase one, we spent $250,000, phase two, over $250,000. Today, the board approved nearly $740,000 investment. The Meisner site improvement, we're contracted $454,000, and that's on top of the other $100,000 that we have spent on that site improvement. We're looking at improving our dispatch radio consoles. That could be another $300,000 or more. So in conclusion, all told, over the past 3 years, the 911 district has or is in process of investing over $1.8 million in our current system. When you include annual maintenance on all of our systems, we're well over the $2 million mark. In closing, the last thing on my director's report is it's actually a public recognition and a note of appreciation to both the patients of the board and the staff of this district. I've been out on medical leave. I'm still not technically released, and they've been doing a yeoman's job in supporting the district, helping me, so thank you.
Okay. Executive session, to read out the ORS.
Yes, so we're going to close regular session,
Okay.
and we're going to go into executive session under ORS 192.660 Section 2, Section H as in Henry, for legal counsel.
Having a break in between.
We can.
Yes, we'll break for, we can break 10 minutes.
All right.
All right. Agenda items for September 22nd, 2022.
So the only thing I would say is just to make sure we have it on there to visit the meeting times and date kind of thing.
6:30 p.m. is that what we decided?
Yeah.
Yes.
For that day.
That was on the 22nd. Anything else on that? Anybody? Mike, anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Other business and member comments. Any other business to come before the board? Then we'll start with directors, if I hear none. Mr. Flatt, do you have anything?
No, I'm just welcome Mike back from the sick leave and a lot of things to think about here. Don't want to kick this thing down the road anymore because it sounds like it's been kicked down the road a long time, but I think there's still a little more work to be done before we make a very important decision here. So.
Mr. Heimmuller.
Just want to thank all the public that showed up today and staff, of course, for all your hard work, and good to see you back, Mike.
Thank you.
I hope you continue to recover
Every day.
rapidly and all of that. But yeah, and everybody, next weekend is Labor Day, so everybody have a safe weekend if you're traveling. So that's it.
Mr. Anderson.
Well, as Henry said, thanks to the public. I mean, besides some emails, we've had some attendance, and so we'll see if changing our hours to the next evening, see how that changes things. Hopefully we'll get some more. No, I would say it's nice to see that I think, as we mentioned, the radio stuff is painfully progressing. I am happy to see that, you know, our current system is getting a little bit more attention than it has recently, and I'm looking forward to hopefully repairs can be completed within next meeting, or if not, if they are above your authority, at least we can take action and have some good news. So I think that's a little bit long overdue.
Sean?
Well, it's nice to see you all. The online just doesn't quite do the same thing. Nice to see Mike back.
Thank you.
Glad you're feeling better. And all that.
Well, again, to kind of reiterate everyone, it's nice to have the public back. Thank you guys for being a little bit tolerant. This is not a normal position for me, so I appreciate the help, for sure. So, and especially to Mike, I'm glad you're back and for your help. So, I agree on the radio system. We've got a long ways to go, and hopefully we'll get some answers that we're looking for so we can get moving on it. So, anything else before I adjourn? Right.
Right.
Meeting adjourned at 11:41.
Thank you.
Goodbye.